Welcome back to A Better Choice Homestead, where on my channel I focus on food, growing it, preparing it, and preserving it. Today's Tuesday, so this is an edition of Tasty Tuesday. And tonight I really wanted to make Marry Me Chicken. If you're not familiar with Marry Me Chicken, because I wasn't aware of it for many years of my life, it is an absolutely delicious, creamy chicken dish that you can make right in a skillet and pour over rice or pasta or even potatoes. It is amazing. But I do not have sun-dried tomatoes in my pantry, and I do not feel like going to the store. So I'm gonna show you how to make Marry Me Chicken pantry style. And that means that we are gonna be using some of our homegrown, summer-ripened, dehydrated tomato slices. And these are going to mimic the flavor of the sun-dried tomatoes beautifully, and it's gonna reduce the amount that I spend on the ingredients that I need for this dish. So let's get started. First thing we are going to do is get these tomatoes hydrating. So you want to use about a half a cup or so. I'm going to estimate that, about the same as you would for the sun-dried tomatoes. So I am just going to put some of these in a bowl. I'm going to estimate that. I'm probably going to go a little heavier on them. There we go. That looks good to me. Let me count these out for you, and then we'll see how it comes out at the end. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 slices in here. And if you saw me do these, you know they came from my big slicer tomatoes, and they were sliced about 1/4 of an inch thick, and then I just stuck them in the dehydrator until they were done. These are such an easy ingredient to incorporate into your meals, and it just brings back that flavor of summer. I've got my bread machine going in the background, and it's just changing cycles now, so I apologize, but there's gonna be a little background noise today. I'm actually trying to perfect, and I'm almost there, my homemade, home-milled wheat kamut flour bread recipe in a bread machine. So I'm really excited about that. I've had really good luck with it 2 times. I'm just tweaking one more thing to see if I can make it even better. But moving back on to tonight's dinner, I'm gonna go ahead and set the tomatoes aside. And to this bowl, I'm just gonna add some water from my kettle. I heated it up, and that's just gonna help soften these and get them ready to use. So I'm just gonna submerge them in water and let them sit while we get working on the rest of the ingredients. I like to have everything ready to go when I start cooking. It just makes everything go so much faster. So here I have half a cup of flour, and I am just going to put that on a shallow plate that has a little bit of a lip on the sides of it to help hold the flour in. And to that, I'm gonna add a little bit of salt and pepper. I'm gonna go with about 1 teaspoon of salt and about 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. And then I'm just gonna get that mixed around really quick. I'm just gonna use my hands. Doesn't have to be fancy in your kitchen. And now I'm gonna dredge some chicken. But first, I'm gonna get some olive oil heating up in a pan. About 2 tablespoons ought to do it. So we're gonna get that in here, and we're gonna turn this heat up to about a medium high. And that way, as the chicken comes out of the dredge, I can put it right into the pan. And by the time the last piece of chicken comes out, they're almost gonna be ready to flip. So this is gonna go pretty quick. This is gonna be one of those start to serve in under 30-minute meals, and it's gonna be delicious. So I'm just gonna get this chicken open. Now, I prefer to use organic, and I also prefer to use boneless, skinless thighs. I just feel like they hold more moisture in them, they're more flavorful, so that's my preferred if I'm making a skillet dish like this. You can use white meat, the boneless, skinless chicken breast if you'd like. I would just cut them down thin if they're the larger breasts, and then you might even want to pound them down a bit so they cook a bit quicker. You don't want to overcook them because they could get dry. So I am just going to pass one of these thighs through this flour mixture, and we're gonna just seat it right in the pan. So we want both sides of this coated Have you had Marry Me chicken before? Do you think it is good enough to make you want to ask somebody to marry you? I think it's pretty darn good. All right, so we've got one chicken coated. I'm just gonna go right in the pan. Already got a nice little sizzle going on there. Those are gonna need about 3 or 4 minutes per side. So we're starting at 5:04 here. And I'm shaking off the excess after I go through the dredge. And I'm setting my chicken in here in a clockwise rotation so I know which piece needs to be flipped first. And I usually do about 4 to 5 chicken thighs when I make this, but I'm gonna see if we can't get this extra one in there because it's pretty small. This was, where's the sticker? 6 pounds of boneless, skinless thighs. I know there's many variations of this recipe out there, so I'm curious to know what your favorite is, if you've made this, if you have a favorite. Yeah, I think we're gonna be able to get all 6 pieces in there because, like I said, this last one is really small. We've got plenty of flour here, but it wasn't overkill. We're not wasting a bunch. So this last one is just a tiny little piece. I'm gonna open it up as much as I can and get it nicely coated with the flour. All right, we are 2 minutes in, so I'm gonna get this cleaned up really quick and I'll bring you in for a close-up so we can do the flip and see what that looks like. All right, these are sizzling nicely. They've got a nice golden brown color on them. They look gorgeous. So we're just gonna get those flipped. We're gonna give them another 3 to 4 minutes. It's 5:09 now, so 3 to 4 more minutes. I just reduced the heat down to a medium, and we're going to take out the chicken. It just looks lovely. Look at that color. It's gorgeous. I'm going to set that aside. So we're on a medium-low right now, and I'm going to go ahead and add 4 cloves of garlic minced. I'm going to try to be quick about this because we don't want the garlic to burn. We want to cook it in here for just about a minute until it gets nice and fragrant. Love the smell of freshly minced garlic. It's lovely. Makes me want to eat. All right, with our garlic in here, I'm just gonna stir that around, and we're just gonna heat that up for just a minute. We're not necessarily trying to fry it or burn it. We're just getting it woken up. And now I'm going to go in with 1 cup of chicken broth. And we're going to deglaze the bottom of that pan. So when you add a cold liquid into a hot pan like this, it's going to scrape up all the brown bits off of the bottom, which holds a ton of flavor from whatever you just cooked. And in this case, it would be those chicken thighs. So we're just deglazing the pan. And by stirring this around, I'm also helping cool it down because we're gonna be going in with some heavy cream here next. And the chicken broth, by the way, you'll see on Friday that I used my Instapot to cook some chicken, and that yielded some lovely chicken broth that I didn't want to toss, so I saved it, and that is what I used in here. Nothing goes to waste if I can help it. All right, now that this has cooled down some, I'm gonna go ahead and add in 1 cup of heavy cream, and I'm gonna add that in slowly so it tempers everything in here and we don't curdle the cream. Remember, we're just barely on a medium-low flame. And then I'm gonna go in with, this is about 3/4 of a cup of freshly grated Parmesan cheese. This is the Parmesan cheese that I got in my recent Azure order. And I know my recipe says 1/2 cup, but it just didn't look like enough because I'm doing that extra piece of chicken. So I just upped it a little. It's probably, I don't know, 1.5 cups. And I'm just gonna stir that around until the cheese melts. And now we can add those tomatoes. So they've been softening in here for 15 minutes, and I'm just gonna pull them out onto my work surface here, and I'm just gonna slice them down. So that they're bite-sized, because these are pretty big pieces. I'm gonna put the pieces back into the bowl here in just a second. So I'm just gonna do a rough chop through these, keeping my sauce stirring at the same time. Got to be quick about this. So I'm just going to rough chop these. I'm going to put them back in the bowl, and I am going to add a little olive oil to these because when you do use sun-dried tomatoes, they come packed in oil. So I'm just going to drizzle a little bit of oil over the top, get that massaged in a little bit, and then we're going to drop that into the sauce. You would not know the difference between homegrown dehydrated tomatoes and store-bought sun-dried tomatoes, I promise you. These are amazing. All right, now it's time to add some seasoning. I like to use oregano and parsley in my dish, but you can use thyme, you can add whatever seasonings you like. So here I've got some homegrown freeze-dried oregano. I'm gonna just get a good pinch of that, and then I'm just gonna crunch it down, break it up. And same with my parsley. And it looks like I did preserve enough last summer to get me through the whole season, because we just entered into spring, which means summer is right around the corner, so yay. Didn't have to break into any of my back stock. Look at the color in here. Isn't that lovely? All right, the last thing I'm gonna add in here, and this is of course optional, but if you've been here a minute, hi, my name is Kelly, you know I like heat, so I'm gonna add some red pepper flake. Couple little pinches in there. We're gonna get that stirred around. Oh, this looks fantastic. All right, now we can add that chicken back in. Look at that color, it's stunning. So we're gonna nestle that chicken right down into this sauce. Make sure that it's on the bottom. It still has a little cooking to do. There we go. I'm just gonna pour the juices from the plate in there as well. And now this just needs to simmer covered for about 20 minutes while we make the rice. Tonight to cook the rice, I'm gonna actually use my Instant Pot. I know I've shown a couple of times how to make the perfect stovetop rice, But I also want to show you how to make the perfect instant pot rice, and it is not using the button that says rice, because that never works well for me. So all I'm going to do is take the trivet out, because you don't need that when you're cooking a grain in your Instant Pot. And we're going to use equal parts grain to equal parts liquid. And I'm using more of that chicken broth that I got out of the Instant Pot just yesterday. So we're going to do 2 cups of rice, which is going to make almost 4 servings, or 4 cups, I should say, of finished rice. And I'm just going to dump that in. And then I have measured already 2 cups of that chicken broth, so I'm going to put that in. And then we can get our lid closed. And then I'm just going to push pressure cook for 6 minutes. Make sure that my valve is closed. And this is going to take maybe 5 minutes to heat up, 6 minutes to cook. We'll do a few minutes of a release, so that by the time the skillet is done, dinner will be ready. Couldn't be easier or more delicious. The Instant Pot is almost done with its 6 minutes run. It's got somewhere up to a minute left, so there's just a number 1 on here right now. When it's done, I'm gonna let it do a natural release for 10 minutes before I vent it on its own. And that's really gonna help all of those rice grains absorb all of that steam and moisture that's in there. It's gonna help make it so it doesn't stick to the bottom of your pot as well. So just 10 minutes before you let the rest of the steam out. By that time, this will be fully done and we'll be ready to eat. There it is. Okay, now that that's done, I'm gonna go ahead and take the lid off my pan. Oh, wow, does that look amazing? Let me give you a close-up on that. Now, traditionally, this dish calls for some fresh basil on top. I don't have any, but I do have freeze-dried. So what I'm gonna do while we're waiting for that rice to finish cooking, we're about halfway through the cooking process here, is I'm gonna take my freeze-dried basil and I'm gonna sprinkle that in and just let that rehydrate in the juices that are in this pan. This is gonna be so good. Wow. I might have just made myself a new staple recipe. Look at that. All right, we're gonna go ahead and let it finish for 10 minutes while we vent the rice. We're at the 10-minute time on the natural release, so I'm gonna go ahead and vent this. There's not a whole lot left in there. And once our little button pops down and we know we're no longer under pressure, we'll go ahead and get the lid off. All right, let's take a look. Perfect, fluffy rice that does not stick to the bottom of the pot. Couldn't be easier. So let's get plated up. This smells insanely good with that freeze-dried basil in there. It smells like I just picked the basil from the backyard right before putting it into the pan. It is incredible. I've got a plate of rice here, and I'm gonna put a piece of chicken on top. And then I'm just gonna spoon some of that sauce right over the rice and the chicken. Wow, this looks amazing. Wow. Couldn't be easier. Marry me chicken, pantry style. Let's give it a taste. You really don't need to fuss over ingredients when you're making something in your own kitchen. Get creative. This came out, well, what smells and looks fantastic. Let's try it. Now I'm gonna put together a quick little simple salad to serve this with. But for now, we're just gonna try some of the chicken with some dehydrated tomatoes. Yes. That is a yes. That is absolutely delicious. And there is a good bit of kick in here too from the red pepper that I added. If you like red pepper, 2 pinches. If you don't, scale it back. All right, let's just get a bite of some chicken and some tomato and some rice. This looks so good. It's a little bit hot. This is so good. This is absolutely fantastic. And that was so easy to put together. So as we're heading into the 2025 growing season, if you're planning on growing tomatoes, please dehydrate some at the end of your harvest so that you have some on your shelf. They're not only good in this dish, I've also showed how to make tomato pie. If you haven't had tomato pie, you do not know what you are missing. It is like a crust under and crust over lasagna / pizza. It is absolutely amazing. You can find that in my Tasty Tuesday playlist if you're interested, but it is made with sun-dried tomatoes. Sorry, that's not true. It is made with your backyard grown tomatoes that you dehydrate, especially if you want to make that pie in the winter because it boosts the flavor just like it did in here. Thank you so much for joining me for another edition of Tasty Tuesday, Marry Me Chicken, Kelly's Pantry style. My name is Kelly, you're at A Better Choice Homestead, and I do hope you come back and visit again soon.